Take us through a little bit about how regulations changed and how HDFC actually managed to sort of work around them.
So if you actually go back to the history when HDFC started, there was no regulator actually. I mean, the whole NHB concept actually took birth much later when we had almost done 10 years of business. Then only the NHB was born. But before that, it was like a normal NBFC, like a normal RBI registration and all that stuff. But the specific regulation for the housing finance company started with NHB coming into the picture and taking over the role from RBI to that extent. From there on, what we have seen is that whenever there has been a regulatory change in the RBI scheme of things, either for the banks or for the NBFCs, there has been a parallel change which has been also been sort of happening in the housing. But considering that housing is a long-term asset, it is a more stable asset and this thing, so some of the changes are actually different for housing finance companies relative to the normal NBFCs. Having said that, I think all the regulators, whether it is NHB or the RBI, they are very much given to the fact that we need to have coexistence of both NBFCs as well as the banks. And that's how this whole the growth has happened across NBFCs as well as the banks. And somewhere I think in the late last few years, I think there is also a discussion around sort of aligning some of the scale-based regulations, where effectively we are saying that beyond a certain scale, if an institution is there in the financial sector, then you need to be actually governed maybe differently or more closer like a bank type of regulation. So that's where we saw the emergence of the new set of regulations, whether it is on building up the balance sheet strength in terms of LCR requirements, or whether it is in terms of capital adequacy requirement for larger institutions, or the NPA sort of recognition of the banks versus the NBFCs. All that actually was actually the culmination of this whole integration happening between, from a regulatory perspective, this thing, but the existence of these institutions for the purpose of providing the services to the last mile customers, that is not actually sort of questioned by any either the policy framework or by the regulators. It is more about how you govern it, whether you carry enough capital, whether you have enough risk management systems. So around that, there is a lot of this thing, convergence which has been sort of brought about. And obviously, as you become larger, your ability to manage the risk and in terms of keeping enough this thing to sort of weather away some of the, like you pass through a lot of macro sort of issues, whether it is pandemic, whether it is global failures and all that. So that managing that in the context of a size is very important. So that's where I think some of the convergence of these regulations are also coming in.